thank you for joining me for today's episode of Once Upon a Crime. March is Women's History Month, and this month we are featuring women who shaped true crime. These female true crime trailblazers were instrumental in forwarding the true crime genre as authors, investigators, prosecutors, researchers, and victims advocates. Their contributions to their fields are widely hailed as increasing awareness of the dangers of predators and informing the public how to stay safe, and understanding the criminal psyche to gain ground in identifying and apprehending criminals. They have also been advocates for victims, aiding them in navigating the justice system and to begin the process of healing. I invite you to join me in learning the stories of 3 female true crime trailblazers. Stay tuned until the end of the episode to hear about an exclusive interview I'll release next week with one of the most well-known and influential women in modern true crime. I am so excited to meet her, and I've been looking forward to speaking with her for a very long time. Without further ado, here is the first episode in the series, True Crime Trailblazers, 3 kick-ass women who shaped true crime. As someone who runs a small business, I'm always having to juggle the time and energy I put into the creative side with the necessities of running a business. Sometimes I don't get to spend the time I'd like to create a new episode because of all the other tasks I have to prioritize. If that sounds familiar, then you really should check out Bamboo HR. Bamboo HR simplifies everything you need to stop spending countless hours on payroll, time tracking, benefits, performance reports, and more. With Bamboo HR, those hours are shaved down to minutes, so you can get back to doing what you love. And Bamboo HR prides itself on being super easy to use, easy to learn, and easy to implement. That makes Bamboo HR easy to love. I get it. HR is hard, but Bamboo HR is easy. To get started, it only takes a couple of minutes to check out their free demo to see all the platform can do. Are you ready to see what Bamboo HR can do for your efficiency? Do what I did and get the free demo at bamboohr.com/free demo. Get back to doing what you actually love in HR. Go to bamboohr.com/free demo. That's bamboohr.com/free demo. Anne Leslie Rule was raised in a family of law enforcement officers. In the 1950s, women police officers were still a rarity, yet she aspired to put on the badge and continue the family legacy. However, a physical limitation caused her to put aside that dream. Instead, her fascination with crime and criminals led her to a career as a crime writer. Her chance encounter with a serial killer would change her life and result in Anne Rule becoming the most published and well-known true crime author on the planet. Anne Rule was born Anne Ray Stackhouse on October 22, 1931, in Lowell, Michigan. Her father, Chester Stackhouse, was a football and basketball coach, and her mother, Sophie Hanson Stackhouse, was a schoolteacher who specialized in teaching developmentally disabled children. Several of Anne's family members were police officers or officers of the court. Her grandfather and uncle were sheriffs, her cousin was a prosecutor, and another uncle was a medical examiner. She grew up hearing crime stories from her relatives, which created an early spark in Anne, who became interested in police work and criminal psychology. The criminal element fascinated her, and she indulged this curiosity during the summers when she volunteered to help her grandmother prepare and serve meals to inmates at the jailhouse her grandfather oversaw. Anne earned a bachelor's degree in creative writing from the University of Washington. She also minored in psychology, criminology, and penology, studying the punishment of crime and prison management. To supplement her studies in crime fighting, she took courses in crime scene investigation and police administration at Highline Community College. Anne pursued her dream job and was thrilled when she was hired as one of Seattle Police Department's first female officers. However, her career was cut short due to her poor eyesight, which caused her to be disqualified from becoming a patrol officer. "It just broke my heart because I loved that job so much," Rule said later. Anne's degree in creative writing would now come in handy as she blended her love of writing with her fascination of crime stories. In 1969, she began writing for the true crime magazine True Detective. However, Due to the bias against females as authors of hard-boiled tales of violence and murder, she was advised to shield her gender from readers. Anne Rule's first crime stories were published under the pen name Andy Stack, tweaking her first name and abbreviating her birth name Stackhouse. Anne married Bill Rule, a teacher and technical writer. They had 4 children. Although the couple divorced, Anne kept her husband's last name. All her later true crime books were published under her legal name, Anne Rule. Anne's life probably would have continued on a predictable path, working as a freelance magazine writer and raising her children, but for a chance encounter in 1971. She was volunteering at a Seattle suicide crisis hotline, where she was paired with a young law student answering phones on the evening shift. The young man's name was Theodore Robert Bundy, and 40-year-old Anne took a liking to the polite and personable 24-year-old. Ted considered Anne a mother figure. Between phone calls, they chatted and learned about each other's lives. They discovered some things they had in common. They were both transplants to the Pacific Northwest, Anne from Michigan and Bundy from Pennsylvania. They both had an interest in the law and law enforcement. It was natural, then, that they would discuss the most widely covered news stories in Washington state at that time. A series of women had gone missing from college campuses in the Seattle area. Rule continued following the story closely as it unfolded. So 2 years later, after Bundy relocated to Utah to complete his law degree, she was shocked to learn that her former coworker had been arrested for aggravated kidnapping in that state. She was even more alarmed to learn that he was being investigated in connection with the missing women in Seattle. Rule, at first, hard-pressed to believe that her friend Ted could be the monster suspected of such crimes, wrote to him as he sat awaiting trial. He wrote back and assured her that he'd been falsely accused. She wanted to believe it, but as the investigation continued and the evidence against Bundy mounted, dismissing it as a mistake became more difficult. Later, after Bundy escaped his jail cell and went on the run, Rule had to concede that he was responsible for the missing and murdered young women. Her utter surprise at learning she'd considered a person who turned out to be a cold-blooded killer a friend compelled her to research the life and crimes of Ted Bundy. Rule wanted to understand what drives seemingly ordinary people to commit the worst atrocities. Her first true crime book detailed the Ted Bundy case. Published in 1980, The Stranger Beside Me would ultimately sell over 2 million copies and launch her career as a true crime author. More than 30 books followed, with most becoming bestsellers. Some of the most popular titles include Small Sacrifices, the story of Diane Downs, who was convicted of shooting her 3 children and blaming it on a carjacker in Oregon, and If You Really Loved Me, which chronicled the murder of Linda Bailey Brown by her 13-year-old stepdaughter Cinnamon. Cinnamon's father, David Brown, would later be convicted of coercing his teen daughter to kill his wife. I covered the Diane Downs case in the Monstrous Moms and Dastardly Dads series in Season 1, and the David and Cinnamon Brown case in A Family Affair in Season 8. There are links to both episodes in the show notes. Rule also penned best-selling books about serial killers, Jerry Brudos, the Lust Killer, and Randall Woodfield, the I-5 Killer. Most of the cases covered in Rule's books were about crimes committed in the Pacific Northwest, where she resided. As she became more successful, Rule grappled with the fact that, in her words, she was, quote, making a living off other people's tragedies. This affected her to such an extent that she sought out advice from a psychiatrist. The doctor told her that many people who worked in fields dealing with tragedies, including police officers, morticians, and attorneys, also sometimes experienced their jobs as an ethical dilemma. What mattered, the psychiatrist said, was how she felt about the people whose stories she told. Rule reflected on this and realized that she cared very much about the victims, their families, the investigators, and court officers, who were all affected by the crimes she wrote about. She felt she had a duty to tell their stories in a way that portrayed them accurately and compassionately. Rule came to terms with her career and believed she was, quote, doing what I was meant to do in life, end quote. Rule's readers were, quote, not interested in the kind of person who looks like he would commit murder, she explains. They want to know about the kind of person you could not imagine having this monstrous self behind the pleasant face. I wanted to know why some kids grew up to be criminals and why other people didn't. That is still the main thrust behind my books. I want to know why these things happen, and so do my readers, Rule said. She made sure to write detailed profiles of the victims and the detectives who worked the cases, integrating them into the crime story, and created an accurate depiction of the killers. J.B. Dickey, the owner of the Seattle Mystery Bookshop, where Rule held several book signings over the years, said Rule, quote, had a knack for getting under the skin of the killers and the victims to really make them well-rounded characters and people. They weren't just flat figures on a page, end quote. Rule had developed such a sixth sense for getting into the minds of killers that she was asked to provide her expertise on serial murders by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. She aided the Green River Task Force in its search for the Green River Killer. Ultimately, Gary Ridgway would be arrested and convicted for 49 murders, making him one of the most prolific serial killers on record. Rule published a book about the case titled Green River Running Red in 2004. Her books have sold over 20 million copies, and she received 2 Anthony Awards presented by the Mystery Writers of America for A Rose for Her Grave and Dead by Sunset. Anne Rule died at the age of 83 in 2015. Her daughter, Leslie Rule, reported that her mother had suffered several health issues in her last years. She died from congestive heart failure. Anne Rule has been honored as a pioneer in true crime writing. She is often credited for the rise in popularity of true crime books and the genre in general. She is also lauded as a tireless advocate of victims' rights. Her daughter, Leslie Rule, followed in her mother's footsteps and authored several books. She has written 2 novels and several nonfiction books on the paranormal. Her first true crime book, A Tangled Web, was published in 2020. One sad footnote to Anne Rule's legacy is that 2 of her adult children, Andrew and Michael Rule, were charged with forgery and theft just before their mother's death. It was reported that they had financially exploited Rule, whose poor health required around-the-clock care during the last 2 years of her life. Prosecutors stated that her sons took advantage of her vulnerability and forged checks in her name, totaling over $100,000. On a personal note, I credit Anne Rule's books, particularly The Stranger Beside Me, for my initial interest in true crime, which ultimately led to the podcast that changed my life. Her book was the first true crime book I read, and once I finished it, I was hooked on true crime. Her detailed account of the backgrounds and psychological profiles of the killers and the victims inspired me to study criminal psychology, research true crime cases, and share them on this podcast. And so Once Upon a Crime was born. I will forever be grateful to Anne Rule for the inspiration. I'm very aware of the passing years. Although the calendar may reveal my chronological age, I don't necessarily want to feel that age. But the reality is, as you age, your body's natural healing processes begin to slow down. That's normal, but it doesn't mean there's nothing you can do about it. Adding a collagen supplement from Ancient Nutrition is a great way to feel more vibrant, youthful, and energized. Ancient Nutrition's Multi-Collagen Advanced Lean is a game changer in collagen supplementation. Formulated with clinically studied ingredients, this powerhouse blend helps promote healthy weight management and lean muscle building, all while delivering the benefits of collagen for radiant skin, hair, and nails. And it's easy to incorporate into your daily routine. Whether you prefer the convenience of a pill or a scoop of powder in your morning coffee or smoothie, it's an effortless way to fit daily collagen into your lifestyle. Since adding Multi-Collagen Advanced Lean to my daily routine, I've noticed fewer cravings. I can go longer between meals without snacking, and I have more energy. No more mid-afternoon slumps. If you're looking for a simple way to support your body, boost your energy, and feel amazing, Ancient Nutrition's Multi-Collagen Advanced Lean is a must-try. Right now, Ancient Nutrition is offering 25% off your first order when you go to ancientnutrition.com/once. That's ancientnutrition.com/once for 25% off your first order. ancientnutrition.com/once. One new habit I've begun in 2025 is weekly meal prep to ensure my nutrition goals are on track. Shopping on Thrive Market has made this a breeze. Thrive Market makes shopping for quality, non-GMO ingredients simple and affordable. The Thrive Market site lets you filter by dietary needs, low carb, high protein, dye-free, and more. So finding healthy options is effortless. I've saved so much time and money shopping on Thrive Market for my weekly meal prep. Whether I'm stocking my pantry with staples or ingredients for that week's meals, I can find everything I'm looking for, fill my cart, and check out quickly. Need a sweet treat? Use Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner to find better alternatives to your favorites. I love Mavericks Bolt cookies and Smart Sweets candies. They're all guilt-free indulgences. Ready for a junk-free start to your 2025? Head to thrivemarket.com/onceuponacrime and get 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/onceuponacrime. thrivemarket.com/onceuponacrime for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. If you're finally ready to get off the roller coaster, achieve your weight loss goals, and make lasting changes, Weight Loss by Hers offers a proven solution designed just for you. Hers is transforming women's health care by providing access to affordable weight loss treatment plans delivered straight to your door if prescribed. Hers makes weight loss more affordable. Compounded GLP-1 injections start at just $165 per month, with a 12-month plan paid up front. No hidden fees, no membership costs. With personalized compounded GLP-1 treatment plans, Hers customers have reported losing an average of up to 9 pounds in their first month. Their holistic approach provides tailored options, including weekly GLP-1 injections featuring the same active ingredients as Ozempic and Wegovy, or convenient oral medication kits. If you've struggled to lose weight, now is the time to find a solution that truly works. Start your journey with Hers today. You can start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/once. That's FORHERS.com/once for your personalized weight loss treatment options. forhers.com/once. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased. When I launched my podcast, I was passionate about bringing true crime stories to life. Researching cases, crafting compelling narratives, and recording each episode was the dream. And when Once Upon a Crime took off, I was lucky enough to turn that passion into a full-time career. But what I didn't love was the time-consuming business side of things. If you're a small business owner, you know that feeling. Drowning in paperwork instead of doing what you love. If you have employees, managing HR tasks can eat up your valuable time. Time that could be better spent growing your business. That's where Bamboo HR comes in. Bamboo HR is the all-in-one HR platform that simplifies payroll, time tracking, benefits, performance reviews, and more. It streamlines the process so you can focus on what really matters, your people and your business. Getting started is easy. It takes only a few minutes to check out their free demo and see how Bamboo HR can save you hours of work every week. Plus, it's designed to be intuitive, simple to use, and quick to implement. Take back your time with Bamboo HR, because running a business should be about passion, not paperwork. Are you ready to see what Bamboo HR can do for your efficiency? Do what I did and get the free demo at bamboohr.com/free demo. Get back to doing what you actually love in HR. Go to bamboohr.com/free demo. That's bamboohr.com/free demo. Shows like Mindhunter and Criminal Minds give us a fictional look into the FBI's elite criminal profiling and investigation department, the Behavioral Analysis Unit, or BAU. The BAU handles cases ranging from cybercrime to crimes against children and terrorism. But it's most famous for creating psychological profiles used to apprehend serial killers and violent sexual criminals. 3 FBI agents are most credited with founding the BAU, then known as the BSU, the Behavioral Science Unit. They were John Douglas, Robert Ressler, and Roy Hazelwood. But the BAU would not have become the success we know it as today if not for the contribution of one person, an outsider and a woman, Anne Wilbert Burgess. Dr. Burgess was born in 1936 and grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. Like Anne Rule, her career interests stemmed from her upbringing. 3 of her uncles were doctors. Anne began helping her uncles deliver babies for patients in the rural countryside when she was 11. She pursued a career in nursing, receiving her degree from Boston University. She continued her studies, earning a Master of Science from the University of Maryland and a Doctor of Nursing Science from Boston University, with an emphasis in clinical psychiatric nursing. About her interest in working with psychiatric patients, Dr. Burgess writes, quote, "I cut my teeth learning about the violent side of human nature as a doctoral student studying psychiatric nursing. I was fascinated by the human mind, how it worked, and how its instabilities could lead to the most extreme forms of behavior." She wanted to observe, identify, and analyze patients she worked with directly in the psychiatric ward of Spring Grove State Hospital in Maryland. Burgess was first drawn to female patients diagnosed with mental illness and soon discovered a common thread connecting many of them. A large percentage of these women were victims of sexual assault. Dr. Burgess writes that in the 1970s, when she began working with female rape victims, they received little to no support to deal with the trauma they'd experienced. Even worse, those who were brave enough to come forward and report their attackers were often stigmatized by a blame-the-victim mentality. They were questioned about what they were wearing, if they had perhaps, quote, led their attacker on by flirting with them, or were even accused of lying. As a result, many rapes and sexual assaults went unreported, and victims were left to grapple with the fallout alone. Some of these women could not bear the burden and ended up in psychiatric wards after suffering mental breakdowns or attempting serious self-harm. Burgess decided that to understand the nature of sexual violence fully, she needed to study both the victims and the perpetrators. She began interviewing male patients who were placed in the psychiatric unit's forensic ward. These men were awaiting trials or other court-related matters. Many had committed the crimes of sexual assault or rape. She used this opportunity to interview these men to gain insight into their crimes and motivations by, in part, learning about their life experiences beginning in childhood. Dr. Burgess collected this information to compile into a study with the goal of better understanding the emotional and psychological effects on victims of sexual assault and the patterns and motivations of perpetrators. She believed these insights might be useful in supporting victims' needs. Dr. Burgess teamed up with Linda Lytle Holmstrom, a sociologist from Boston College, to interview almost 150 survivors of rape soon after they were admitted to the Boston City Hospital emergency room. Important insights were gleaned from their research, and they published these findings in nursing and psychiatric journals in 1973 and 1974. One of the most significant conclusions of their study was that sexual violence was motivated by power and control and not sexual gratification. They coined the term rape trauma syndrome, which describes the psychological trauma victims experience after an assault. The study was groundbreaking in that it helped systemically validate victim trauma by creating awareness. It also changed how law enforcement engaged with victims, how medical personnel responded to their specific needs, and how the legal system worked with survivors to adjudicate their cases. At the same time, the FBI was working to combat violent sexual crimes, which had seen a sharp increase in the 1970s. Special Agent Roy Hazelwood, new to the Bureau at that time, learned about the study Dr. Burgess had co-published and contacted her. He needed an expert with a background in sexual homicide, sexual assault, rape, and victimology to share her knowledge with the FBI agents working in the field. He invited Dr. Burgess to the FBI Training Academy at Quantico, Virginia, to give a lecture about her research. Not intimidated by being the only female in a room filled with 40 buttoned-up G-men, Dr. Burgess launched into her experiences and research working with victims of violent sexual assault. Hazelwood and his colleagues were impressed with her in-depth knowledge of the psychology of both victims and perpetrators. She was asked back to conduct ongoing classes. Hazelwood introduced Dr. Burgess to Special Agents John Douglas and Robert Ressler. They were the Behavioral Science Unit's mine hunters, assigned to undertake original research in their field of interest, the thought processes and patterns of multiple murderers. This new breed of killers would soon be branded serial killers, and were unique in that they targeted strangers, continued killing over weeks, months, or years until caught, and their crimes often included elements of sexual violence. Douglas and Ressler were conducting interviews with incarcerated serial killers, but needed a formal way of collecting data and compiling it to make sense of their findings. This, and the fact that Dr. Burgess had a unique insight into the minds and motivations of violent sexual offenders from her time interviewing them at the state psychiatric hospital, made her an asset to the team. Bringing Dr. Burgess in to work directly alongside FBI agents in the newly formed Behavioral Science Unit was unprecedented. Not only was she an outsider as a non-agent, but she was also a woman. There were virtually no female agents in the Bureau then. Most women who worked at Quantico were employed as clerks or secretaries. The FBI profilers interviewed 36 serial killers in prisons around the country. With Burgess's help, they used this data to identify the killers' motives, the planning and preparation that went into their crimes, how they chose victims, and other aspects of the crime, including the disposal of bodies or elimination of evidence. They also delved into the killer's backgrounds, childhood, and adolescence, seeking to understand what drove them to kill. They believe that gaining insight into the perpetrator's thoughts and behaviors may help investigators to identify and apprehend other serial killers and further the study of criminal psychology. Their work first saw success in the apprehension of child murderer John Joseph Joubert IV for the murder of 2 boys in Nebraska in 1983. The profile created by the BAU led investigators to suspect Joubert in the murders. He was arrested in 1984 and ultimately connected to a third murder of an 11-year-old boy in Maine, where Joubert had previously lived. He confessed and was convicted of the 3 murders and was executed by the state of Nebraska in 1996. Quote, "We'd proven that there was a value in understanding the criminal mind," Dr. Burgess wrote in her 2021 memoir, A Killer by Design. To be able to actually use criminal profiling in an active case to hunt down a killer was the most satisfying reward of all, end quote. Burgess, Douglas, and Ressler co-authored 2 books based on their research that are still considered essential works in the fields of criminal psychology, offender profiling, and violent sexual offenders. Sexual Homicide, Patterns and Motives was published in 1988, and Crime Classification Manual, A Standard System for Investigating and Classifying Violent Crime was published in 1992. Dr. Ann Burgess continued to consult on high-profile cases even after her time with the FBI ended. She was asked to serve as an expert witness for the defense of Eric Menendez during the Menendez brothers' first murder trial in 1993. She spent 50 hours interviewing the younger Menendez brother and testified that she believed he was telling the truth about being sexually abused by his father and murder victim Jose Menendez. In her opinion, the abuse was a, quote, originating cause of the killings, she told the jury. Now 87 years old, Dr. Ann Burgess is still as sharp and energetic as ever. I had the chance to see her present at CrimeCon in 2024. I was thoroughly impressed with her insights into criminal behavior and her ability to recall her cases in great detail even decades later. She is still an educator, a psychiatric mental health nursing professor at Boston College, and an emerita at the University of Pennsylvania. She teaches courses on victimology, forensic science, and forensic mental health, and an elective called Wounded Warriors in Transition to help students understand the needs of service members who return from active duty with psychological trauma or catastrophic injuries. Dr. Burgess uses current cases to illustrate criminal psychology and psychiatric mental health, including the Gilgo Beach murder case and, most recently, the University of Idaho killings. One focus of her teaching is in the area of threat assessment to prevent mass killings such as school shootings. She points to social media as a place to look for warning signs by analyzing writings and identifying those who may be a threat. Here's one fun fact about this super cool lady. I'm a big fan, if you can tell. She and her nursing colleagues from Johns Hopkins University meet monthly via Zoom to examine cold cases. They call their group the Super Sleuth Club. How cool is that, and how can I get an invitation? Dr. Burgess inspired the character of Dr. Wendy Carr in Netflix's excellent semi-fictionalized account of the formation of the behavioral science unit, Mindhunter. In 2024, a 3-part docuseries titled Mastermind to Think Like a Killer about Dr. Ann Burgess and her work was released on Hulu. This is Esther, host of Once Upon a Crime. Here at Once Upon a Crime, we strive to give you details about the true crime cases we cover that you won't hear anywhere else. I dive deep into the backstories of victims and perpetrators and shed light on the little-known details about even the most infamous cases. That said, I can't always fit all the fascinating info I gather into every episode. If you want the details I had to leave on the cutting room floor, I invite you to join me on Patreon. As a Patreon member, you'll have access to bonus case notes episodes where I share the rest of the story. Details not included in episodes for the general public. You'll also have access to early release and ad-free episodes, a bonus series episode each month, and an exclusive thank you gift. In addition, as a new member, if you purchase an annual membership, I will gift you a case file with my outlines, notes, photos, and other collected resources straight from my desk to you. You will also receive this gift if you're a monthly member and switch to an annual membership. Currently, you'll receive the case file for my Murder City series. Here's a sneak peek inside. The Murder City case file, which you'll receive as a gift for becoming an annual member, includes my outlines, handwritten research notes, timelines, crime scene photos, maps, and diagrams that give you an inside look at the creative process behind each episode. I've never before shared the secret sauce of Once Upon a Crime. With an annual Patreon membership, you'll get this inside look and also save 15% over a monthly membership. It's a win-win. Join Once Upon a Crime on Patreon for even more true crime stories, videos, and special perks for insiders only. Go to patreon.com/onceuponacrime to find out more and join. Thank you so much. Dr. Ann Burgess did important work with the FBI, but was never employed with the Bureau. Although the acting director, James McKenzie, formally recognized her and welcomed her to the Behavioral Science Unit, she was an independent consultant. Women were not formally admitted to the FBI as agents until 1972. Even then, it was difficult for women to qualify, and many were turned away. It would take time and a shift in attitude, not just policy, before women could make headway in what had long been a male-dominated agency. One woman interested in joining the FBI didn't even make it to the application phase. Kathleen McChesney was a senior at Washington State University when an FBI recruiter visited the campus. As he handed out applications to the other students, he passed her by saying, quote, "The FBI doesn't have women as agents." Intent on a career in police work, after graduating with a bachelor's degree in police science and administration, McChesney applied to the King County Police Department in Seattle and was hired. She worked at first as a fingerprint examiner and in evidence collection, a job she loved. However, her supervisor encouraged her to apply to become a police officer. Yet another hurdle stood in her way. She didn't meet the department's requirements to be at least 5 foot 4 inches tall and weigh at least 110 pounds. Still, she took the civil service exam and passed with flying colors. She then appealed the department's requirements with the King County Civil Service Commission. She was then permitted to be hired. Her supervisors gave her a month to gain 7 pounds to be insured by the department. "I did it," McChesney says. "I ate a lot of carbs and wore a lot of jewelry." Only 5 other women were in her police academy class in 1972. She became the first female police officer to go on patrol in Washington state. She was posted to the Sex Crimes Unit and joined the task force investigating the serial killer Ted Bundy. At age 24, she became one of the lead detectives in the Ted Bundy case. Her ability to connect with and interview Bundy's female friends, girlfriends, and relatives resulted in important information in the search for the killer. Women shared more with the female detective than with her male counterparts. It was Officer McChesney who learned from Bundy's former girlfriend that he kept crutches, bandages, and medical plaster in his home, which led investigators to believe he was faking an injury to put women at ease and lure them away. McChesney worked for the King County Police for 7 years, and then reconsidered applying to the FBI. The same year she started her job at King County, the FBI began hiring women as agents. She knew she'd enjoy the investigative work she could do with the FBI, but as a lifelong Washington state native, she also knew that the trade-off would be frequent relocation. She decided to join the FBI in 1978. Although she was correct that she would be moving around the country for her job, McChesney's career was filled with variety, challenges, excitement, and accolades. As one of a handful of female FBI agents, she broke through many glass ceilings. McChesney spent several months training at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, before being assigned to the San Francisco office. She arrived just after the assassination of San Francisco County Supervisor Harvey Milk and Mayor George Moscone. She was later assigned to head an undercover operation involving money laundering and drugs. In 1978, she worked with a team to investigate cult leader and mass murderer Jim Jones, whose People's Church had been located in San Francisco before he moved his followers to the jungles of Guyana. McChesney returned to Quantico to work in undercover special operations. She was among only 2 women in the FBI Criminal Investigations Division's undercover unit. Her unit supported undercover operations around the country, including Abscam, an FBI sting that exposed a U.S. senator and 5 members of Congress in 1979 and 1980 who were taking bribes for political favors. In 1986, McChesney was transferred back to the West Coast and assigned to Los Angeles as a supervisory special agent. She served as the department's first female squad leader and worked on kidnapping for ransom and government fraud cases. In 1991, she was designated Assistant Special Agent in Charge and was the second highest agent in the Detroit, Michigan FBI office. 3 years later, McChesney was named Associate Special Agent in Charge of the Los Angeles Field Office. At that time, she was the FBI's highest-ranking female field agent, supervising over 500 people. In LA, she worked on several high-profile cases, including the 1991 beating of Rodney King by the LAPD. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, McChesney oversaw the investigation of Betty Lauren Maltese, the town president of Cicero, Illinois. Lauren Maltese was convicted of an insurance scam that robbed the town of $12 million in funds. Other political corruption cases she assisted in included the Chicago Justice Department jewel theft ring and the bribery, racketeering, and fraud charges brought against Illinois Governor George Ryan. After 24 years with the Bureau, McChesney closed out her career at Quantico, where she served as one of the 3 executive assistant directors under FBI Director Robert Mueller. At 51, McChesney was reaching the FBI's mandatory retirement age. At that time, she was asked by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops to establish and lead its Office of Child and Youth Protection in response to the church's child sexual abuse crisis. She established protocols the church adopted to respond appropriately and in a timely manner when sexual abuse claims were reported against clergy members. After leaving that position, she completed her career by becoming the Vice President of Global Security at the Walt Disney Company. McChesney admits that she didn't take much time off, saying, quote, "I was working every day in one way or another. I didn't take many vacations." Somehow, she also managed to complete a master's degree in public administration at Seattle University and earn a doctorate in the same field from Golden Gate University in San Francisco. Not bad for a woman the FBI once rejected because of her gender. You could call Kathleen McChesney a petite woman who is nevertheless larger than life. That will end our episode about 3 kick-ass women who shape true crime. Next week, I'll bring you what for me is a long-anticipated interview with one of my ultimate true crime heroes. I will sit down and talk with none other than famed prosecutor Marcia Clark. Marcia Clark, most famously known as the lead prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson double murder trial, is also an author, novelist, legal analyst, and true crime television host. She recently released her first true crime book, Trial by Ambush, which tells the story of a woman on trial for her life in the 1950s. I can't wait to talk to Marcia, and I hope you'll join me next time to listen. I'm so nervous and I'm so excited. It's just a few days until I'll be in Albuquerque for the Beyond the Crime Convention. Get your tickets now for this all-day event on March 15th at the Isleta Resort and Casino. Hear from true crime survivors, family members of the missing, detectives, advocates, and true crime content creators, and don't miss my live show. Go to beyondcrimeconvention.com and use our promo code BEYOND-OUAC to score tickets, and I'll see you there. Once Upon a Crime is written and produced by me, Esther Sanchez Ludlow. My executive producer is Lorena Garcia, and my researcher is Emma Battaglia. Until next time, be good to one another.